What we have here is a failure. Oh, sorry, I was channeling Strother Martin. What we have here is Slablog Podcast number 20. Welcome. I'm your host, Philip Albritton, and we have no co-host today, but we do have a call-in guest, Cramer. No, not that Cramer. This is my writing friend, Bob Cramer. Glad you could join us. We're gonna do this in later on, most of the music and everything. But I don't know where you want to start. You say you want to talk about your trip to Europe. You said.
Well, it was my first motorcycle trip in Europe.
Oh, the first one. What year was that?
Well, sorry you ask. I'm almost sure it was around 2008.
Ah. Well.
But that's the one that trip has fond memories for me. And I was by myself. And I was on a singing tour with a group from Marietta Master Chorale, which Gail sang with, and we were in Linz upon a river. I can't remember the name of the damn river.
Was that Germany or Austria?
Germany. Yeah. So anyway, I left the group there, and I went into Munich, and I rented a motorcycle, which was a pretty interesting deal. The guy had was in a row house, and he had a huge basement or garage in the bottom, and it was literally jammed packed with motorcycles. They were touching each other up against each other. And it was kind of interesting, and he had all kinds of motorcycles. I ended up getting a Honda Devour. That's not the right word. But yeah, it is Duval. I think it was. It's an 800 V twin shaft drive, and the back side of it has the saddlebags kind of wrapped around the back of the seat, and it was all one thing, almost like a Goldwing is today, but it was a smaller bike.
They probably don't sell that one here.
They do not. Okay. And anyway, it was one that was, when I talked to the guy, it was recommended. It fit me well, and it was just okay. So anyway, I left Munich, and I went down into southern Germany, over into Italy, and I traveled down into Italy to Turin, and then I turned around and went back up. And the interesting thing is, I stayed in hotels. I stayed in one in Munich. I stayed in one, and it was in northern Italy somewhere. I don't even know where it was, but it was a nice big hotel, and it had a gigantic. The whole underneath of the hotel was a garage. So you could, and the odd part of that was it was the biggest garage door I have ever seen in my life.
Well, were these like local chain hotels, or were they like international chain?
They were local hotels. So the excuse me. So that one that I'm talking about there was on the way down, and it was. When you got there, you could park your bike underneath in the garage, so you didn't have to worry about where it was or anything.
Right.
And it was okay. It was not a fabulous hotel. It was a big hotel, but it was not fabulous. And I think the guy was running into some real financial problems there.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, there, and I did not speak Italian, or do not speak Italian. So when I was there to get a room, there were 2 or 3 guys pulled in on bikes, and they talked to the manager, and they left. And I probably should have left too, but I didn't. Anyway, I rode there, and I wanted to go to a BMW dealer that was in Turin, I think it was. Think of the name of the town here in a minute. Yeah, Turin, Turin.
Okay.
And but I could never find it. I did find a bike shop that was where I thought that was supposed to be, but it wasn't a BMW shop, and it was not anything like what I might consider a motorcycle shop here in the States. But it was fun. I went down, I rode around in that city a little bit, very congested city. Then I went back north, And one of the things I enjoy encounters with people, and I was going north and I missed a turn. I was following my map, but I missed a turn. And so I pulled over to the side of the road to look at my map again to see where I was. And I was directly across the street from a huge lumber company. And this guy came swinging out of there in the largest forklift truck I've seen. And he looked over at me and he said, "You need help." He said something in Italian. I didn't understand. He said German. And I said, "No." Then he said English. This guy was a forklift truck driver. He could still speak at least three languages.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he came over and he told me exactly where I missed my turn and how to do it and where to go and everything else. And jump back on his forklift truck and down the road he went. And that's pretty cool. He didn't have to do that. He could have just, looked at me and kept right on working.
They're probably used to a lot of tourists, I guess.
And I think the reason that he could speak German and Italian was because that particular part of Italy over the centuries had bounced back and forth between Germany and Italy.
Yeah.
And so it was, there were probably people up there that were German descendants as well as Italians.
Now you're riding on the right side of the road there in Italy. That's not like England, I guess.
No, it's
okay.
So, but on that subject, I think I told you this week at lunch is that I watched a video from a guy riding a travel video in England, and how the cars parted the ways and let this bike just have its way right through down.
Yeah.
And he was splitting lanes, and he wasn't doing it at 5 miles an hour either. He was clipping along pretty good.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, even the car, he would pull out and pass, even with cars coming the other way. And not something that you or I would never even consider, but those cars pulled over to the far edge of their road. So they gave him plenty of room.
Oh, here they do just the opposite. They move over so you can't get through.
They run.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's pretty cool. But anyway, that's a side subject. So I left there and I went back up and my plan was to, every one of these little villages that I passed through, I wanted to pull my camera out and take a photo of all of them have signs at the entrance and the exit of their towns, welcoming to this town or whatever. And I wanted to do that, but I soon forgot I was supposed to do that. And so I didn't get any of them.
Did you see a lot of Ducatis and other Italian bikes on the road?
I saw some other bikes. I was up in the Dolomites, and that's a playground for motorcycles up there.
Curvy mountain roads, yeah.
Yeah, curvy mountain roads. And there was one large parking lot that I went in, and there were probably 20 or 30 motorcycles in that parking lot. But I didn't have much interaction with them as I was riding on the road. And so then I rode back into Munich, where I was got my bike from. I had to return my bike in Munich, and then I had to catch a train to go over into Salzburg, Austria.
Yeah.
And when I got into Munich, I couldn't find my way. I was totally lost. I found a taxi cab, and I handed him the address I was looking for, and I said, "Do you know where this is?" And he looked at me and looked at the address. He says, "Yeah, you're on the wrong side of the city, don't you?" I said, "No, I'm lost." And I said, "You go there, and I'll follow you." I said, "If you make it, I'll pay you. If you lose me, you're not getting paid." So I went back to, he took me right to the house where I had to go. And it was past turning time for the return time for the bike. And I had to catch a train. So I didn't know what I was going to do. So anyway, I called the guy, the bike rental, and he came within, 5 or 10 minutes. He showed up and took my, he had all my clothes too, my suitcase and everything.
Oh, yeah.
So we exchanged. I paid him. Everything worked out really good. And then he gave me directions to the nearest train station, which seemed like probably a mile from where I was, that I had to walk pulling my bags. I but I caught my train, and I got to Salzburg about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
So,
wow.
it was a fun time. I rode a lot of country or twisty roads over there. I saw a number of things. In the one little town that I stayed in, the it was a really old, rickety old hotel, and it had a balcony that went out of my room, but the guy says, "Don't go out on that balcony; it might fall over." And I believed him. And to put where I kept the bike tonight, he had a shed that was just kind of a rickety shed. I didn't know which was safer, to have a bike outside or inside.
Yeah.
Anyway, they almost always provided a place for you to store your motorcycle. This was a 4-day trip that I did.
Yeah.
That place was pretty cool. They had a lot of construction workers staying at that hotel, and at that place they had dinner right there at the hotel, which was pretty good. At the other hotel I stayed at, with the underground garage, I had to leave there and walk into town, and I found a pizza place, and I ordered a pizza with pepperoni, but that means something different in Italian.
Yeah, I bet.
All I got was a bread with sauce on it. What I got.
Yeah. Well, what?
Anyway,
so when you turned in your bike in Munich, you said, and you went on the train to Salzburg, is that where Gail was singing with the group?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the Dome in Salzburg. Anyway, that was a fun trip for me. I usually stayed with those. We've done several of those singing trips, and I usually stay with a group. At that time, I thought, "Nah, I'm not going to do that."
It gave you an opportunity to go on a ride. So you rode for it was 4 days and 3 nights. You stayed 3 nights.
Yeah, it just really was a good time. I had a great time. I would do it again in a minute.
Yeah. Well, how was the bike? Did the bike go okay? I mean, it was in good shape, I guess.
The bike was, I don't remember if I even checked how many miles were on it, but when I took the bike back, the guy was surprised at how many miles I had traveled.
Oh.
He said, "You ever get off of this while you had it?" And that's what I did. I rode almost all the time. I stopped at very few places. But I enjoyed the twisty roads. I enjoyed the villages, the small villages that you go through, and each one seemed to have a grocery store, what we call a grocery store, and a cafe, and a butcher shop, and a baker shop, and each one of them seemed to have their own little local guy.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that too. The riding is superb because, first of all, motorcycles have precedence over automobiles in those countries, so you don't need to worry about getting run over or offending somebody, or somebody trying to run you off the road.
Bob, I'm going to have to be rude here and take a little break from our chat to recognize our sponsor for today, which is Zolo Extra Virgin Olive Oil.
Zolo Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Yes, Zolo oil has a self-centered, strong, and narcissistic attitude. It demands the presence of important guests and dishes, and thanks to its beautiful color, it is always in the spotlight. The oil is solid and a bit spicy in its early days, sweet and fragrant later on. Zolo Extra Virgin Olive Oil.
Okay. All right, Bob. So what about gas refueling? Is it similar to here? You just pull out your card?
Yeah, there are a couple of different ways. You have the self-service, and you also, in those days, you also had a person that would come out, but generally they ask if they could put the gas in. It's not like a car where they automatically stick the nozzle in.
Yeah.
There they ask you first if it's okay, and then if you say no, just give it to me, they'll hand you the nozzle.
But they have to take it out of the pump, the guy?
No, not necessarily. It was a combination of all different kinds of situations. Self-serve, you serve. There were some that weren't even open and only you could use your credit card. You could go in and get gas. The stores were closed, but you could go in and use your credit card and get gas.
Yeah.
The pumps could get gas. So, but you couldn't get any service, anything else because the places were closed.
It's like, it's not like out in some remote areas of Texas. Traveling through there, you come across a hill and there'd be nothing around, but it's supposed to be a gas station there, and it's just a pump with no building or anything. You pull up to the pump, and it's all automated. You just get your gas, and you don't ever interact with anybody or anything except that pump.
Well, sometimes on another trip in Italy, and I've been to Italy 5 times. I really enjoy Italy, but one time I couldn't find gas, and this is the trip that Tommy and I were on, and we were we tried to get these guys at a restaurant to understand what we wanted, and no matter what word we came up with, they didn't understand what we were talking about. And I think they finally called it benzine or benzidine or something.
Yeah, benzene.
We were driving through this little town. It was just almost like a bus stop. You pull over and there's a pump right there. Put your credit card in, you get your gas and move on. It was first time I've ever seen it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, north of Italy, I lived in Austria back in 70, 71, long time ago. And I was over in that area between Salzburg and Switzerland. And I don't. Didn't you have to travel through a portion of Austria to get to Germany from Italy?
No. From Germany, Munich. I think I just went straight south into. I can't remember where now, but Italy has. Over where it's western side there. I'm trying to see where you would cross into Italy from Germany. Actually, on this map that I'm looking at, you'd have to go through Switzerland first, but I don't remember going through Switzerland to get there.
The road probably didn't change at all. It was just, you're on the German side of Switzerland, and
as we're talking, I just can't remember that. When I picked that bike up in Munich, I just got to a main like an interstate and started traveling south, and I just don't remember any numbers or cities or anything I passed into until I got into Italy.
You would think they would have some sort of border where you would have to stop and show your passport or something between.
In those days, that's right, you would have, but I don't remember doing that either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like you had a good time on those few days there. So
that was a terrific ride, I thought.
Does Gail do that every year? She goes to that singing thing?
No, she's actually that group is not in business anymore, and she's now singing with KSU.
Oh, I'm thinking of Joan. Charles's wife goes on singing trips sometimes.
But one a couple of months ago, I think, or a year ago, anyway, recently.
Yeah.
And I can't remember now where they went. I think she went to England or Germany. I'm not sure which one she went to.
Seems like she was in Salzburg.
Was she?
I think so. Yeah.
But anyway, I don't remember where she went, and I don't think Charles would ever travel with her there. So
yeah, he doesn't know what he's missing. Hey,
you're right. I think everyone should just experience those things at least once.
Yeah, when I was there, I was young. I was 20, 21, and I rode bicycles around, and I rode the trains, but I didn't have a car or a bike or anything. But I had already been a motorcyclist since 15, and I just drooled the whole time. The whole 2 years I was there, I was just like, oh man, I'd love to have a bike here, a motorcycle. And,
what city were you in?
I was in Salzburg, and then way over in Vienna. I was in Vienna for a few months, and in Vorarlberg, which is over near Switzerland, Liechtenstein, back and forth. Yeah. But now you normally the transition from riding here and riding that bike. For the sake of our listeners, what bike were you riding here at that time? Were you still on the RT?
Yes, I still have my RT then.
That was 1100, wasn't it?
Yes, R1100 RT.
So what was the difference? That was a lighter bike, I guess. There
was a lighter bike, and it was much less power too. On the RT, you could run 100 miles an hour if you could find a legal place to do that.
Yeah,
you could do that, and the bike would just keep right on humming along. On that bike, when I was on the Autobahn or Autostrada, at 100 miles an hour, it started to make noises if you were there for a while.
Yeah.
Rest.
Well, I recall going on a ride with several people down to South Georgia, North Florida one time with our Georgia club. And there was a guy who, I don't remember him joining any other rides, but he was on a 1100 RT. And he got tired of us poking along too slow. And he said, we got to a long stretch of road somewhere down there. And he said, I'm gonna stretch the legs here, and you guys just catch up with me down the road. And he took off, and just in an instant, he was just a speck in the distance, you know.
It wasn't the time you guys all got stopped by the sheriff at the end of the road, was it?
No, I don't recall being stopped.
Oh, you didn't remember?
Yeah.
One guy on that, and I wasn't on that ride, I just heard stories about one guy had leathers on, and the sheriff said, you look like you were speeding.
Yeah, you look like you were speeding. Yeah. Well, that's some experience. Like I said, I've always wanted to go back over there to Europe and ride some of those roads, because it just the scenery. I like to just cruise along the mountain roads and look at the scenery, and I was able to do that on the train, but it would be different riding a bike.
Yeah. It's I just so enjoyed it so much. And then when Tommy and I went back in 2012, September 2012, and we didn't see a lot of stuff. We went a lot of places, and we went a lot of passes, etc., but we didn't really sightsee.
Yeah.
And, I think I missed a lot on that trip as I think back about it, all the great things we could have seen if we had just taken a little more time instead of just intensively riding all day, every day. And then one thing that is good about that, Tommy took a movie camera and he had it mounted on the bike, on the rental bikes that we got.
Uh-huh.
And so I have, I think, 7 different CDs with that whole trip on that he and I did.
Wow. What time of year was it when you went in 2008, the first one?
That was in, I think it was in the spring of the year, but I can't remember for sure.
You didn't encounter snow on that one, did you?
No snow. And I guess I had my riding jacket with me, because before I left on that trip, I had to buy a new suitcase. It was the biggest thing you'll ever see in your life. And so I could handle all my riding gear, my boots, my helmet, and everything else was in that suitcase. And I didn't have anything large enough to carry all that stuff before I left. So I bought this big giant thing that rolled around.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure if I still have that. I think I might have given that to somebody. But anyway, I put all my riding gear in it, then all my street clothes in that. And it worked out pretty good. And then, when you rent these bikes, at least twice that I've done this now, you take all your stuff with you, but then when you get on your bike that you have rented, you leave all of the other stuff, the non-essentials, you leave that stuff at the place where you rented your bike, and they usually have a secure area to keep it. And so you don't have to worry about that. You only take what you need for the days you're going to be on the bike.
Yeah.
Then when you get back, and in fact, I'll tell you one thing. When Tommy and I went in 2012, I had taken 3 or 4 pair of gloves with me. And the gloves, when we picked our bikes up, it was a nice sunshiny day, and all I had on was my perforated gloves. And as soon as I found out, I left all of my other gloves back at that dealership. And we went over mountain passes with snow and sleet. And my poor fingers were about to fall off the bike.
Oh gosh.
I had to stop at another bike place and buy a pair of gloves that cost me 180 euros.
Oh, speaking of cost, what I know in 2008 it was probably different, but what's the cost of renting a motorcycle like that there?
In those days it was cheap as dirt, even cheap for the bike, cheap for the insurance and anything else that went, the whole package. My 4 days, I don't think my 4 days cost me $500.
Oh wow, yeah.
At the most.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure it didn't even cost me that.
Yeah.
And I one little place in Munich that was one of the third hotel that I stayed at was in Munich, and it was I can't remember now, but it was absolutely cheap. But the room was more like a closet than it was a hotel room. It was right in downtown Munich too.
Well, you know how they say time flies when you're having fun, and it flies even faster. When I've noticed every time I get into one of these discussions while I'm recording, the time I look over at my timer thing and it's just gone by so quickly. So we're actually out of time now. But I appreciate your comments here, your chat. I'll get this posted up, and we can do another one sometime. But I'm going to call it a wrap for today. See y'all later. Bye.